11 years ago, an energy company comes down here. They unearth that. It's a door?
We call it the vault.
I think whatever is on the other side of that door out there, it's not friendly. I think it's trying to get out.
I can open it. I can give them what they want.
The entire grid's buckling. It's a domino effect.
Everyone hold on to something.
Dr. Graff, what have we done to ourselves?
Show me, Agent Blaine. Show me sacrifice.
Just lost the Eldridge.
Lost! It exploded!
As the only one who can get the others through that ship, I'm sorry, but it's going to come down to
I'm
you.
not a leader.
I lost something. Something perfect. And I'm gonna bring it home.
Killian is so important to what is happening here.
Little ones, right? Made for this.
So, it's to be war between us then.
I think it must be.
Mars versus Dorian. Jesus Christ.
Who is this Dr. Graff you keep talking
You
about?
have no cards to play here. Because what's coming, you cannot hope to face without me.
Derelict. Season 3. Now crowdfunding. Support us at derelictpodcast.com/war.
Welcome to Unlike-Minded, a sci-fi audio anthology.
Overwritten by Robbie Hyne. We felt safe in the dark, the most ourselves in those woods at the edge of town. We'd sneak out late and just be, away from school, family, everything. Some nights we'd climb the old radio tower to look out. Other nights we'd lie in the dirt and name constellations wrong on purpose. Or take turns reading by flashlight from whatever dusty sci-fi paperback Sean had lifted from the library that week. Mind Children by Hans Moravec was the latest. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence. I wondered if you could hear how loud my heart got around him in those quietest moments. We liked how everything looked different at night, how the familiar got strange, even mysterious. We liked that no one could see us clearly, even that we ourselves could get lost. Together, we could become something strange, even mysterious. That night was no different, or maybe it was, even from the start. There was something on Sean's mind. It was quieter, slower, weighed down. I almost asked if he wanted to turn back, but the words didn't come. I was selfish. I wanted every second with him, safe in the dark. If only we were. When we climbed up the tower, we sat close together and looked out over our little town, just beyond the train tracks and the fields. Edgewater. We could still see the worst of the tornado damage from last year. Collapsed roofs, splintered trees, the half-destroyed news station, scars that hadn't finished healing, some that maybe never would. When I turned, his eyes were locked on me. He looked down like he'd been caught in something embarrassing. "Elijah," he said softly. The words caught. He pulled something from his jacket. "I made you a mixtape." He pivoted, avoiding some truth he couldn't say out loud. He shoved it at me like it burned. I took it, laughing. He laughed too, nervous but relieved. The laughter faded into smiles. Our hands inched closer on the metal grate. Nervous, cautious moves, until they almost touched. A spark, a rush of emotion, and then a sudden hum vibrated through the beams of the tower, rising to a crackling surge that exploded through the antenna. Showered in sparks, Sean pulled away. So did I, the tape slipping from my fingers into the darkness below. "Damn it," I muttered, heart pounding. With all calm again, we scrambled down the ladder to look for it. Only as I touched down, the world felt off, heavier. quieter than it had any right to be. My head buzzed, my muscles ached. Still, I shook off the feeling, flicked on my flashlight, and started the search. "Any luck?" I called. He didn't answer. "Sean?" Silence. I looked up, but I couldn't see him. "Sean!" As I rounded the tower, I spotted him frozen in place. Pale. Blank. His flickering flashlight beam locked on the trees. "What's with the close encounters, dude?" I joked weakly. No response. I stepped closer, reached out, my fingers barely brushing his shoulder when a sharp electric shock sent my hand flying away. Confused, I looked down at the burned tips of my pointer and middle fingers, and when I looked back at Sean, he bolted. No warning, no words, just a wild sprint into the woods. "Sean!" I shouted, stunned. I ran after him, branches tearing my arms, twigs cracking under my feet, his flashlight dancing between the trees, then vanished completely. I stopped, panting. The air felt charged, the woods humming a low, pulsating hum, the kind you feel more than you hear. I edged forward into a clearing, finding his flashlight on the ground. It was still warm, still glowing, until it flickered, crackled, and died. Then, a blinding light, a sudden rush of wind, the trees roared, the earth tilted. I flew backward off my feet, smashing against a tree trunk. Everything went white, then completely dark. I was in the sheriff's station a few hours later, wrapped in a blanket that clung uncomfortably to my body with static. Sheriff Nix, an older woman with graying hair and stark features, sat across from me in her office. The lights above her buzzed and flickered. She asked me to recount what happened. I tried, but everything felt dim and foggy. Only pieces of the night remained vivid, fluttering through a humming in my mind. Or was that in my mind? The same hum from the forest, crescendoing into a splitting headache. Then, shattering with the lights, which all went out at once, plunging the station into complete cold darkness. Then, just as suddenly, the lights blinked back to life, one by one. Sheriff Nix didn't even flinch. It was as if they hadn't gone out at all, like it was some strange glitch in my head. Sheriff Nix called for a manhunt. Deputies, volunteers, even a few hunters with flashlights and rifles. She promised they'd find Sean. She told me to stay put, not to interfere. But after everything that happened, how could I just sit there? I slipped out the back of the station, back into the night. Avoiding dancing flashlight beams and barking dogs, I retraced my steps from the tower through the forest. The dark no longer felt safe, but I moved through it anyway. In the clearing, I sat alone, tears welling in my eyes, wondering how this all happened, wondering where my best friend could be, wondering how I could hear soft, muffled music. I crawled towards the sound beneath the large tree. It was coming from the roots, cutting in and out. I clawed through the dirt, and there it was. The mixtape. The one he had made me. The one I dropped back at the radio tower. How did it end up buried in the clearing? And how could I hear it? "Elijah!" Sheriff Nick's voice cut through the trees. I stood fast, tucking the tape into my jacket, then turned as she marched toward me, furious, spotting the dirt on my hands and demanding to know what I thought I was doing. I wanted to explain. I tried, but before I could string a sentence together, my eyes caught the man standing just past the trees, still watching. A local reporter. When Sheriff Nix followed my gaze over her shoulder, the reporter seemed to snap back into himself, straightening up, smiling, and lifting his camera. The flash of light that came next sent me straight back to the moment I lost Sean. I screamed, then staggered into the tree. In the next moment, or so it felt, I was home, clutching the tape like it was a lifeline, like it could explain something, like it had a message trapped inside. I sat on the floor next to my flickering bedside lamp, playing the mixtape on my Walkman, until I knew every song he'd chosen, memorized their order, and thought of him and their lyrics. That's when I heard something else, layered beneath the music and the silence in between, a whisper laced in static. It was Sean's voice saying, "Elijah, help me." Was I losing it? Or was Sean really still out there, somewhere, reaching out through this tape? I didn't sleep. I didn't go to school. I barely ate or left my room. The manhunt expanded. The search grid widened, stretching through woods, into neighboring towns, even down into the lake. Flashlights and dogs gave way to heat sensors and helicopters. The town of Edgewater, which had always been quaint and quiet, became a staging ground for police, volunteers, gear, and tech. Then the news crews descended upon us. First, it was one van, Channel 4, parked outside my house, with the reporter from the woods, John Clark, waiting patiently around the clock. As the story grew, other stations set up shop on the lawn outside the police station. Then national crews fit themselves into every nook and cranny they could find, investigating, interviewing, reporting. Teen boy vanishes in shocking small-town mystery. Sean's face was plastered on the side of milk cartons, posters, news banners. They showed staticky aerial footage of the woods. They interviewed his parents, then police, then other townspeople, piecing together a story. Soon enough, my face, too, was on every screen. Side-by-side photos of Sean and me over the years. I was the last person who saw Sean alive. I'd been caught in the forest during the manhunt. And with suspicion, fair or not, came more attention, more speculation, more rumors woven into the story. I felt like the world was beginning to close in, because it was. So one night, I did the only thing I could think of to clear my head. I snuck out and climbed the old radio tower. I took the tape and my Walkman. I sat there for what felt like hours, looking out at everything, feeling less safe and less myself than ever before. I wondered if Sean was still out there, somewhere I couldn't reach. If wherever he went, I could go too. If even now, he could hear how loud my heartbeat was as I thought of him. The sound filled my head, steady and alive, until it became drowned by something else. A loud hum rising through the night. A Channel 4 helicopter approaching, then circling like a vulture. I looked up and saw him. John Clark. He was staring right at me, a menacing grin forming on his face, like he caught me in exactly the right moment, exactly the right spot, for the tale he was spinning. Flash. A spotlight shone. I raised a hand to shield my eyes, but the light was too bright, cutting through my fingers and across my mind, taking me back to the light in the woods around the trees. In the next second, I slipped from the bars and dropped my Walkman to the metal grate. It clanged as it landed, and in the echo I heard something almost emanate from it, distorted but louder than a whisper. His voice. Sean's. They want you. Suddenly there was a loud crack, then something like static overtaking the helicopter. I felt the rush of the air as the chopper swayed. The spotlight was flickering. I looked back up in horror, managing to see it happen in bright flashes. John Clark stepped out from the helicopter and fell to his death. Then, the spotlight overtook me completely. I woke up in the hospital, restrained. They told me I had some kind of breakdown, that I'd climbed the tower to jump, and that when I was discovered there, the pilot somehow lost control, and John Clark fell to his death. I was released a few days later, but the world I returned to had already shifted. It didn't matter how innocent I was in all of this. Rumors were louder than facts. Sensational stories were more compelling than any truth. The town was swirling with speculation, theories, concern. I'd now been connected to a disappearance and a death. The news latched on to everything they could, keeping the sensation alive by spinning a tale of the troubled boy I'd always been. To counter this, Sheriff Nix and my parents decided the only course of action was me returning to school. Hiding away was doing no favors for my image. As expected, the return to Edgewater High was met with news crews at every entrance and a police escort into the building. They'd thought I'd be safer once inside, but I felt lost in the hallways I'd known my whole life. Like I was suddenly thrust into a maze of familiar people, places, and things that no longer made sense to me. Stares, whispers, and aside comments followed me everywhere I went. Teachers didn't call on me in class. My old friends wouldn't make eye contact. I tried to hide in the library, but a few kids were gathered around the TV in the back corner, watching footage of the tower incident, complete with body language, expert commentary. The students whispered to each other without turning away from the screen to see me right there. As I inched closer, I found that their eyes didn't blink. Their bodies barely moved. They were locked in place, somehow whispering things I couldn't hear or understand, no matter how close I got. I backed out of the library fast and thought about leaving school. But when I moved up the stairwell to look out the window at the news vans, I knew there was no escape. I found myself staring at a few news people in particular, waiting there, quiet and unmoving, like they were in some kind of standby mode. I'm not sure what came over me, but I tapped slowly on the window pane. So quiet, no one could really hear it. Except, of course, they all did. In unison, every reporter and cameraman tilted their heads at the sound and stared right up at me. I fought Sheriff Nix that afternoon, begging not to go back outside. She pulled me through the crowd and I looked around frantically until I slammed right into another officer. He sent a chill down my spine as he turned back, unblinking. I edged past him, climbing into the back seat of Nix's cruiser. But as I glanced out the window, I caught him glaring, even as he climbed into his own car. I tried to shake it off, but the cruiser fell in behind ours. I turned. The officer's eyes locked with mine. His face was stone still. I felt that chill again, and that's when I heard it. The police radio crackled to life. Sheriff Nix grunted and slapped the receiver with her palm. It cut back to a dispatcher's voice, but only for a few seconds before it became garbled and broken again with static. Then something else came through a spare walkie lying in the passenger seat. A voice, fractured but familiar. Sean's voice. I sat up straight. Sheriff Nix didn't react. She didn't seem to hear his voice at all. The static surged, then clearer. Sean broke through.
It's not safe. I'm trying. I can't.
The sound of screeching tires interrupted. I whipped around just in time to see the cruiser behind us swerve violently left, then right, tires spinning until it finally crashed into a tree on the side of the road. Sheriff Nix cursed, screeching to a halt. "Stay in the car," she yelled, throwing her door open. As soon as the door shut, I lunged forward, reaching through the partition to grab the spare walkie by its antenna. Leaning back, I fiddled with the frequency, but no matter what I did, Sean's voice was gone. I looked up and around. Sheriff Nix was still down by the other cruiser trying to help her colleague. But my attention quickly shifted to something even more terrifying. People were getting out of their cars. Some painted in horror as expected, but others with empty stares. Those few descended slowly, some towards Sheriff Nix, others towards me, eyes vacant but fixed. I tried the door, locked. The other door, locked. I banged on the back windshield to get the sheriff's attention, but she was too far off and preoccupied to notice. Frantically, I fiddled with the dial on the walkie again, then pressed down, begging whoever was listening for help. The outsiders were getting closer, their blank stares still locked on me as I reached further, cutting myself on a jagged part of the metal partition. Further still, pressing my whole body against the partition in desperation. Even further until finally, I got the doors unlocked. I hesitated. Then Sean's voice crackled through the walkie again.
Run!
Suddenly, the cars around us all seemed to rev their engines, garnering mass attention. Using the distraction, I stuffed the walkie in my backpack and threw a door open, diving out and running off as fast as I could. I couldn't understand how they'd twist the accident into something else I was responsible for, but I knew they would. Their questions played in my head as I ran. How troubled was Sean? Did you two fight? What were you doing in the woods that night? Did you do something to him? Was Sean scared of you? Were you obsessed with him? Should you be locked in an institution? Are you losing your mind? That version of me, sold to the world, was cleaner, more cohesive than the truth. But worst of all, I was starting to believe it myself. Maybe I was troubled. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe something was wrong with me. By the time I returned home, I was weak, physically and mentally. I wanted to turn off the world, even just for a few moments. But then I saw it. Sheriff Nix's cruiser was in the driveway. She was already there, waiting. I paused as she stepped out of the car, moving just past the Channel 4 news vans into the street, our eyes meeting. Her face was unreadable, even blank. In an instant, I knew Whatever was going on, it had a hold on her too. I ran again. I didn't know where else to go, only that I needed answers, needed to see the truth with my own eyes and understand what was taking my town. There was only one place that still burned in my thoughts, the Channel 4 news station, or what was left of it. How had I not thought of it before? The building stood broken, neglected, and overgrown, looming in the moonlight. It had been damaged nearly beyond repair in the tornado. We could see it from the radio tower. I noticed now the satellite dish still rotating high above the station, barely on its hinges, and a few interior lights glowed dimly behind dusty, broken glass. As I approached, I heard the muffled music from my Walkman again, coming from my backpack. I let it play, instead taking out the walkie as I made my way inside through a large broken window. It crackled with static. The station was colder than expected. There were still some broken desks, tossed chairs, and even a few ripped posters about community updates and flu season. A looped segment about the town's tornado recovery played on a cracked, mounted TV. But the footage was wrong, warped, glitching. Was that how this all started? Was it a tornado at all? I moved deeper through the debris to a heavy metal door marked Signal Lab. It was already ajar. I pushed it open and stepped through, down a flight of stairs. As I descended, the muffled music grew louder in my bag, and the walkie crackled to life. Through it all, I could hear soft steps behind me. I turned. A man in a Channel 4 polo stood at the top of the stairs behind me, unmoving, eyes open, empty. Then a woman in a lab coat joined him, still watching. They weren't people. Not anymore. I could feel it. I could see the edge of flickering static on their bodies. They were shells, carriers of code, waiting to be puppeted. In contrast to the rest of the building, this room felt alive, humming, not with electricity, but with something stranger. Large cables and thick cords spidered out from wall panels and monitors. Some were still flickering blue. Others played footage, looped, shaky, wrong. I moved closer to one bank of screens. My breath caught. It was me and Sean, in the woods, at the lake, in my room, headphones on, side by side, and at the old radio tower. Every screen played a private moment, a memory that couldn't have been captured, except they had been. But it wasn't just playback. File trees glowed faintly along the walls, lines of text overlaying the footage, human integration profiles, cognitive copies, active revisions. The clips played like old home movies from every angle, some wide, some close, some grainy, some clear, different angles, different versions, glitching and rewinding, slight differences with every run, new expressions, changed words, altered locations. We weren't just being recorded, we were being rebuilt. On one monitor, Sean and I touched hands. My heart pounded. Static surged in the walkie. I almost dropped it. Then I pulled it up. "Sean?" I whispered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, his voice, faint, fractured but real. "I'm close," he said, "but not here." My throat went dry. "I don't understand. They're in the signal," he cut in. "They watched through it, influenced through it. They used me, I think, as some kind of template, a base code." His voice began to break up, like someone or something was trying to stop him. The monitors flickered around me. "They need you too. I've been trying to fight them from within, but..." His voice cut out. Sean, I stuttered. His voice snapped back. "They're trying to overwrite the whole town. But if I'm the base code, I think you're the virus. The part of me they couldn't ever really claim or overwrite. The flaw in the template and the whole system." I clutched the walkie tighter, struggling to understand. How do I stop them? "We have to overload the core," he continued. "If the system dies, their coding dies too." "But," I started. "I'll help from inside.
but we can only do this together.
But
No signal, no connection.
he added as a loud surge rang through the room. The footage on the screen began to distort, then stabilize again, with something new, something live. Footage outside the Channel 4 building tonight where the Overwritten descended on the building. But what about you? I choked up finally, hoping he could still hear me. If we do this, a long, horrible pause. His voice came soft, almost tender.
You erase whatever's left of me here, too.
Above me, crashes echoed through the rafters. Something surged through the cables and the walls. The Overwritten were entering the building, joining those few already inside. Through it all, Sean continued, gently.
But not what's left of me and you, Elijah.
The static climbed to a sharp shriek. Monitors surged. Lights burst. I hit the floor, shielding my face. When I lifted my head, every monitor was dead, except one, the central panel. On it, the tower, the night we almost kissed. Only now, we did. Tears burned my eyes. The moment felt so real, even though I knew it wasn't. But as the moment lingered on the screen, I couldn't tell if Sean was showing it to me or if they were. Was this his memory breaking through? Reshaped by him in the only way he could still speak? Rewritten so that we could finally cross that line we'd both been too afraid to? Or was it an imitation designed to steer me, soften me, bind me to the choice they wanted? I didn't know. I might never know. But I felt him in every part of my chest, my mind, my breath, always a part of me. I love you, I said. Then we began. I tore cables from their ports, ripping handfuls of wire from the walls as he surged like a contagion let loose within. Sparks flew, cracked screens began to distort. The hum rose to a scream, vibrating my teeth, my bones. My head split with noise. Still, I kept going. I kicked over consoles, yanked free grounding plates. Smoke filled the air, acrid and metallic, stinging my eyes. The whole building seemed to pulse, panicked, as if trying to hold itself together around me. Finally, shaking, desperate, I grabbed the broken chair leg. I turned toward the central panel, the monitor still flickering with the tower, with us. The kiss that might have been his last message, or their last manipulation. Then I swung. The screen exploded in a violent cascade of energy, blasting me backward in a blinding flash. Everything went white. Then, completely dark. I don't remember crawling out, only the sudden cold of dawn air against my face. I was standing in the parking lot before the building, silent and dead. The satellite dish, once shaking with signal, sat perfectly still. No buzzing, no distortion. Just me, just quiet. Then suddenly, I felt the tiniest prick of static shock on the walkie. I still clutched tightly in my hand. I raised it, trembling. Static whispered against the speaker, soft and empty. Then, barely there, broken, an echo of fading sound slipping through the ruins.
I love you, too.
This has been Unlike Minded, a sci-fi audio anthology. Collection 4, Among Us. Stories about aliens, skinwalkers, and other invaders. Overwritten was written by Robbie Hyne and narrated by John Brodsky. Unlike Minded is an August year-round production, created, produced, and edited by Robbie Hyne. Our intro and outro music is by Noah James, and our key art is by Brendan Haley. We'd like to give a special thank you to everyone who has supported this independent podcast production. You can keep up to date and find more info about this podcast and others on Instagram at the handle AugustYearRoundProd, by visiting our website, augustyearround.com, or by emailing us at augustyearround@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe, leave a rating and review, and tune in next week for another episode of Unlike Minded, a sci-fi audio anthology.
the Fable and Folly Network, where fiction producers flourish.
This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.